Hi everyone, and welcome to the Low Limit Poker Challenge. I am sitting here doing not too much, and I was just thinking of some online stuff that I look at in my free time sometimes, and I know that many live poker players have never seen a poker hand range calculator. So if this is your first time looking at it, I'm glad you get to see it now. So what this chart is here is aces, ace king, ace queen, ace jack, and so on, all the way down to ace 2 S. The S means suited, means two of the same suit. And on the left side is going down. Aces, ace king, ace queen, ace jack, ace 10, all the way going down to ace 2 offsuit. So this top row and this first column will be every hand that starts with an ace. The second column and the second row will be every hand that starts with a king, going all the way down to pocket twos. And if you notice the diagonal from the top left all the way down to the bottom right is all the pocket pairs. And if you can see in the chart over here, it automatically says hand selected 2-2 plus, which means pocket twos or better. Now it says hand selected every single pocket pair plus ace king suited. So why is something like this valuable? And it's valuable for many reasons, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use this chart to explain how you can give your own opening ranges, how you can kind of make sure you're opening within your own proper opening ranges, and how you can put your opponents on opening ranges. So, for example, I'm probably not explaining this right. Right over here, I'm going to say, let's say I have a very, very tight opponent that only opens with the top 5% of his hands. So let's say this is an opponent that maybe under the gun or under the gun plus one, he's going to be very, very tight, and you're going to estimate that he's only opening with the top 5% of his hands. What are the top 5%? Well, looking at the diagonal, aces all the way through pocket eights. He's opening with those 7 pocket pairs. And he's also opening with ace king offsuit, ace king suited, and the weakest hand he's opening with is ace queen suited. So let's say he's only opening with the top 4% of his hands. Let's see how that changes. And the only change that it made is it actually gets rid of ace king offsuit. So a lot of live players don't know this, and of course your opponents have to know this to know what their proper opening percentage are. But a lot of live opponents don't know this, but ace queen suited is actually it actually has a higher EV than ace king offsuit. Excuse me. Which means the expected value of the amount of money you're going to win or lose is more for ace queen suited than it is for ace king offsuit, which is why ace queen suited shows up in the top 4% of hands. And if I go like this back to the top 5%, we see over here on the left, ace king offsuit is back in. So showing you again, 4% does not include AK offsuit, and 5% does. So this particular example probably might not help you too much in live poker, because many of your live poker opponents don't know that ace queen suited is actually better than ace king offsuit. And we're talking about in a full ring game, you know, when you're opening an early position. It is super, super valuable to have suited cards. As we'll go down the line, let's say your opponent is opening a very, very wide range under the gun now. Maybe he's not exactly the crazy player at the table, but he's bordering on the crazy player at the table. And let's say he's opening the top 15% of his hands. And this is under the gun again. So he's opening hands as weak as ace 7 suited and better, king 9 suited, queen 10 suited. And if they're offsuit, ace 9 offsuit, king jack offsuit, king queen offsuit, hands like that. So that actually still seems a little bit too tight for the crazy guy at the table. So let's plug in 20% and see what those hands look like. Anything down to ace 4 suited, and I might even include ace 3 and ace 2 suited. but let's see. Top 20%, ace 4 suited or better. But if he doesn't have an ace in his hand, he's going to have king 8 suited or better, queen 9 suited or better. And if it's offsuit, it's still going to be pretty tight. So ace 7 offsuit and king 10 offsuit. And I use that word pretty tight lightly because this is, like I said, 20%, which is a very, very wide opening range for someone under the gun. I think most opponents under the gun that are playing smart, serious poker are opening quite a bit tighter than 20%. I'd say, live professionals, especially professionals that think they have a big edge on the game, might be opening up the top, let's say 9%. So let's plug in 9 and see what that looks like. And that looks pretty reasonable. If I'm playing in a higher limit game and I think it's going to be raised or re-raised or I'm out of position, I don't want to be out of position or I'm not getting the odds, I will definitely not play pocket 5s through pocket 2s. So far this is realistic for me. Probably slightly tighter than this actually. I'll probably go down to 8%. And yeah, this looks very reasonable to what I would open under the gun. Ace 10 suited, ace jack suited, ace queen suited, king queen suited. And if my hand is offsuit, it better be a pair of 7s, probably a pair of 6s. I'll add that in. So maybe 8.5% for me. If it's offsuit hand, it better be ace jack, ace queen, or ace king. And I included pocket 6s. I might even get rid of ace jack offsuit because it just doesn't play well out of position. It doesn't play well in 3-bet pots and those type of things. So it's just nice to have an idea what your range is, and it helps to visually see these kind of things. So now let's take the opposite extreme and say we're not under the gun anymore. Now we're on the button. So we're in a regular 5-10 game where it's not too tight, not too loose. So let's say we're going to open the top 30% of hands. And this is assuming no one has limped in yet. You know what? It actually might be even more than 30%. Might be 40%. Yeah, this looks more like it. And also I would include pocket 2s. So if I'm on the button, I'm going to be opening about the top 41% of my hands as opposed to the top 8% of my hands when I'm under the gun. And this is, again, something I believe that all professional poker players do. If no one else is in the pot, when you're on the button, you only have to get through 2 other people. And when you're on the button, you're also guaranteed to have a positional advantage on your opponents. And position is sometimes more than half the battle. So yeah, so let's see what top 40% looks like. It includes any pocket pair. I'm also going to include pocket 2s because I would play that. Any suited ace, any suited king. It would include hands as weak as queen 5 suited, jack 7 suited, 10 8 suited. And actually, you know what? I'm going to add to this chart because it doesn't include some of the suited connectors that I would play. So let's say I'll do 45%. So that includes hands like jack 6 suited, queen 3 suited. If you notice the top 45%, now this might be referring to how well hands play if you are all into the river or along those lines. And if you notice, I'm doing the top 45% of hands for playability purposes, not for their strict ranking as best hands. I would definitely be including hands like 8-7 suited, 7-6 suited, 6-5 suited, 9-7 suited, 8-6 suited, 7-5 suited, 9-6 and 10-6 suited. I might even include queen 2 suited. So it's really a very, very high percentage of hands that I'm opening with. As you can see, there are more suited hands, as always, that we'll be opening with, as opposed to unsuited hands. And this actually looks pretty realistic too on the offsuit side. You're going to be opening with any ace. King 4 offsuit is probably as weak as you want to go. I mean, maybe you'll open with any king, maybe king 2 offsuit. You know, it's kind of up to the player. A lot of the hands are kind of break even as far as EV goes. So it's really if you want to have a loose image, if you want to have a tight image. I wouldn't say king 2 offsuit is exactly a hand that wins a lot of money overall. But let's say you want to have a tight image at the table, you're going to be adding in a few extra hands like that. This includes queen 7 offsuit, Jack-9 offsuit, 10-9 offsuit. I would include 9-8 offsuit. So it might even be 46, 47% of the hands. So let's say you are a tournament player. You're in the early stages of the tournament. What hands do you want to call with in the big blind? Let's say someone raises a middle position, the button calls, small blind folds, and now you're in the big blind, and you are getting approximately 5.5 to 1 on your money if there's no antes. So let's say you're calling the top 35% of your hands. As we can see in the chart, I'm also going to include pocket twos here. You're going to be calling with any suited ace, mostly any suited king, except king 2 suited. You're going to be using calling with any ace that's offsuit, just because ace is just such a strong card, and you're getting 5 to 1. And this would definitely be the people that want to play more hands. Let's say you're more of an inexperienced player, and you wanted to stick to the tighter hands. You say, you know, I don't want to be out of position. I don't want to be in a lot of funky situations with weak hands. So even when a more experienced player might be getting the right odds to call out of the big blind, I want to keep it tight, and I want to keep it to the top 25% of hands. And as you can see here, your choices of hands are, again, I would include all the pocket pairs. I mean, in live poker, it's just super beneficial to play pocket pairs. So I would add in pocket threes and pocket twos. But yeah, this includes any suited aces. But as far as suited kings, you want to have king 6 or better. As far as offsuit cards, you want to have queen 10 offsuit or better, king 9 offsuit or better. In the 25%, it includes ace 5 offsuit, and the reason is because you know, a lot of times you're just going to hit a 5 with an ace kicker, but you can actually make the wheel with ace 5, which is why ace 5 is better than ace 6. But generally, you're going to be wanting to play the upper half of your aces and hands as weak as king 9 offsuit. So that would be the top 25% of hands. So if you think that the person in middle position is opening rather wide, the guy in the button calls, and you want to defend your big blind with the top 25% of hands, this is what it looks like, and it gets you to get a sense, get a feel of you know, the type of hands that you should be playing in these situations. A lot of times, I mentioned this in previous videos, it looks like I'm not paying attention. It looks like, you know, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who straddled. I don't know this. I don't know that. It kind of looks like that. And, you know, some people have a little bit of trouble, and they actually are legitimately lost in the game. And they have to stop and think about. But the reason why I have such a good sense of where I am in the game and what's going on and what I'm going to do is because I've done my homework off the table. I've talked to some super experienced players, some super mathematical players, and I've done this kind of work off the table. So I, in general, know what the top 25% looks like. I know if someone's only opening with the top 6% of their hands, you know, what hands are they opening with? So I have a sense of, you know, what it looks like, and it really is kind of fun to just, you know, kind of look at one of these charts. The website that I'm looking at is pokerhandrange.com, and you can just play around with this. Let's say you can kind of move the slider, add hands. So let's say you're going to include every pocket pair, all your suited aces and kings. Let's say this is your button opening range, all your suited aces and kings. Any ace on the button, king 4 offsuit or better, queen 8 offsuit or better, 9-8 suited, 8-7 suited. Let's include that one. That comes to a little over 40%. So let's say you are wanting to expand your middle position opening range, and you're going to start opening, let's say, 21% from middle position. This is what it looks like. You can kind of add in hands and take away hands as necessary. You know, again, in live poker, I would add in all the pocket pairs. I would add in ace 2 suited. But this gives you definitely a very, very good starting point of where to look, you know, what hands to play in what position. Also, there's definitely a lot of articles teaching you about what hands to play in what positions. And it's definitely beneficial to read those articles on when they mention poker hand range calculators, come to this website, play with it a little bit, get a feel for, you know, what does the actual top 5% look like? What does the top 9% look like? What is, if someone's opening the top 25% of hands, you know, what does that look like? And get a feel for what hands he has. And what this is going to do for you is this is going to let you more accurately put your opponents on a proper range of hands pre-flop. And then when you become more experienced, you can see what actions they take, whether they check or bet or overbet or underbet on the flop, and more appropriately narrow down the range of hands that they could possibly have. So if you know your opponent's, in this case, is opening with the top 21% of hands, right? And then you get in a situation where they bet in the flop. It's the type of person that, it's an ace-high flop, and it's the type of person they would only continue with the bet if they had top pair or better. So now what you can do is you can eliminate all these hands. Let's see if there's a quick way. Yeah, it's like a, whoa. You can eliminate all these hands and say, okay, now I know they have one of these hands, right? And let's say in your mind you can also like eliminate some other hands too. Like let's say they would only open with suited hands if it was weaker. You know, sorry, let me rephrase that. Kind of coming up with this thought process on the fly. They would only open up with their suited hands and their suited aces very weakly. But you know that this type of person, you know, if they were the one to raise pre-flop, they would have ace jack or better if it was offsuit. So you can kind of narrow them down to this range of hands. So now let's say you have an ace in your hand. There's an ace in the flop, and you know your opponent has an ace. Let's say you can eliminate pocket aces because it's just very, very unlikely that they'll have pocket aces. You can kind of narrow them down to one of these type of hands. And, you know, I'm kind of giving you my general thought process, not the whole thing, because it was more meant to talk about the software here. But it kind of gives you an idea of how you can narrow down hands throughout the hand. Let's say they checked on the turn, and you knew if they had two pair or better that they could, you know, that they absolutely would bet on the turn. Let's say, I'm just coming up with the examples again on the fly, but let's say the flop is ace 9 6 4, ace 9 6, and then a 4 in the turn. So if they had ace 9, ace 6, or ace 4, then they would bet the turn, and other than that, they would check the turn if they had one pair or worse. So now we're further narrowing down their hand to ace jack, ace queen, or ace king, whether it's suited or offsuit. Also include ace 10 suited, ace 8 suited, ace 7 suited, ace 5 suited, ace 3 suited. So now that we have them narrowed down to this range of hands, we can say, well, what ace do I have? I have the ace of diamonds. What ace is on the board? It's the ace of clubs. So now I know if they have a suited hand, it can only be, you know, the ace of this and this. So, you know, the ace 3 diamonds or ace 3 of clubs or whatever. And you can kind of further narrow down that way and figure out the combinations of hands that they could possibly have. And a lot of times by the river, you can really narrow down their hand. It's pretty common that, you know, like they might play ace king and ace queen a certain way. So we're not giving them the premium kicker based on the way they played their hand, based on their comfort level, maybe based on some live tells. But you know, let's say maybe they made a bet on the river, and you know they wouldn't you know, bet if they had the absolute worst kickers. So you might be able to narrow down their hand to something like, well, they're not too comfortable with their hand, but they are definitely betting an ace. What aces can they have now that we narrowed it down? They might have a hand as good as ace jack, but there's also two combinations of ace 10 suited, two combinations of ace 8 suited, two combinations of ace 7 suited. So the average hand in the range, you know, let's say, you know, you're trying to make a decision with ace 10. Let's say you hold ace 10 and you're really trying to make a tough decision. you might want to figure out the pot odds and make the call based on that they could have one of these 4 hands: Ace Jack, Ace 10, Ace 8, or Ace 7, and your hand, beats a certain percentage of their range and loses to a certain percentage of their range. So I know I'm rambling. I've never actually taught how to use a poker hand range calculator before. This is the first time I've actually put it in words for someone else to hear. So bear with me, but I hope you liked the lesson. Again, pokerhandrange.com. And if you'd like to talk about it, this is something that I do enjoy talking about. So definitely let me know. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Next time you're in the casino, say hi to us. Say hi to me and Ray. We're in the midst of playing. We're about to play session 4 of the 510 no limit challenge, or 510 PLO challenge. So yeah, definitely come say hi to us if you're in the Twin River Casino area. Bye, guys.